Fukushima is still in crisis mode, and then we look around the world and see other similar instances of a massive radioactive fallout that will continue on through 2015. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. We're going to go into what's current, and that is the accident at the largest nuclear power plant in Europe, revealed by the Ukraine Prime Minister. Now, he came out and had a few things to say, but if we move on quickly into this article here out of RT, radioactive leak at a major Ukrainian nuclear plant, according to this report. So I'm going to skip down further into this article, and it said a radioactive leak has been detected at Ukraine's power plant, the largest in Europe, a media report says, and they have denied this report. So Life News published what it claims to be a leaked report by the State Emergency Service of the Ukraine. I'll forward into the report itself because, of course, as always, I always show you that direct information. I don't like to ever just take a news article's advice, no matter how legitimate the source is. I always want to see that source. When I find it, I always show it to you guys. So let me go back into it because obviously we can't understand this. So we're going to move into it, and it says that the radiation at the facility is equal to the natural background following an incident. They are saying this is nothing to worry about, nothing to see here, please move along. And right here, they denied this, continuously saying this. The energy minister official told the news agency no official comment on whether the leaked documents are authentic has been provided. The plant works normally. There have been no accidents. Of course, there's always these denials that occur. Anytime an issue happens, they just say there's nothing wrong. If the amount of a particular isotope is in the air or found in the soil or found in the water, they just raise the amount that they say is safe. That's how they go about doing this. We're going to break that down further. Let's move on into this article right here. 4 more Fukushima children suspected of having thyroid cancer. This is out of the Japan Times. I don't want to go into the article, but just wanted to show you the damage. It's still being caused today. And this was actually, back in the December 24th. I like to take the articles and collect them over a period of time and really bring out good, solid reports. So the information is relatively timely here. And essentially, we're seeing the fallout of Fukushima, not just in Japan itself, but what happens when all of that radiation begins to spread throughout the world. Canadian scientists find Fukushima fallout rising off the west coast. And, this is just one source of that. I have read many documentation of this fact, not just in Canada as well. They reported it in Alaska. They reported it on the west coast of the US. Radioactivity from Japan's crippled nuclear reactors has turned up off the British Columbia coast at a level that will likely peak in waters off North America in the next year or two. That's what they're saying, but then you look at other reports denying this exact fact. Well, let's just move in to more documentation. This is radiation in Ontario higher since the Japan crisis. I'm talking about Ontario now, where we're looking at the Fukushima fallout going all the way inland, practically halfway past, all the way, near the East Coast. We're looking at this being a major disaster that's not being covered. They will not go into this because they know how bad it really is. Elevated levels of radiation have been found in Ontario since the Japanese nuclear disaster, but health authorities say people should not be alarmed. That's what they say every single time. In fact, let's get into more of that. Tritium leaks found at 48 U.S. nuke sites. Can you believe this? They're not going to go ahead and detail this, break it down, do extra studies here. It is actually, in many cases, individuals or small institutions that are finding out this information. Radioactive tritium has leaked from 3/4 of U.S. commercial nuclear power sites, often into groundwater from corroded, buried piping, an Associated Press investigation shows. Regardless of where it is, if we're having an issue where 3/4 of them are leaking, we have a major catastrophe to worry about. 3/4 of them, and that's what this one investigation showed. I'm sure if they looked into it more deeply, they would find more information like this. But let's just go with this, thinking that 3/4 of them are leaking. How many nuclear power plants are near you, where you live? I have a few not that far away, really, realistically, from us in Toronto here, and we need to worry about this, and I'll show you exactly why that is the case. Pickering nuclear plant suffers minor water leak. I've shown this before, and in fact it happened more than once. This is out of the National Post. Going back to 2011, they basically said that, it was a swimming pool's worth of water containing trace amounts of radioactive material leaked into Lake Ontario from the nuclear power plant here. So they said that it wasn't that much. It was just trace amounts, and by the time it spreads out, we're not going to need to worry. But this is the problem that we consistently see when we have actual radiation going into the drinking water supply of the citizens, and then we have issues being brought up later, and they're never able to connect the dots together. But that's what I'm here to do. They keep saying that this isn't a problem. We are seeing the documentation that shows specifically that it is a problem. So let's go on. Let's really break it down. Why is this allowed to happen? How does this continue to happen? Well, talk a bit about of this here in my free ebooks, not necessarily about Fukushima, but about different topics. If you want the free ebooks in the description of any one of my videos, I always post them there. I like to give out as much free information as possible. I hope you do enjoy that. And basically, all I want to mention from this is that we have a revolving door, and in this case, just take this one case. The former head of the CDC became the president of the Merck vaccine division. Can you believe it? What kind of insider deals are going on here when the alumni of institutions are finding their way into the agencies that are supposed to be protecting us? And that's just the way it is. Every time there is an isotope that goes too high beyond the levels of what's safe, in cases we've heard about, they've actually just turned off those indicators. After Fukushima, reportedly, they just turned off the indicators. You know what? The radiation level's too low. Let's just turn it off. Who does that? That doesn't make a single ounce of sense. Why wouldn't you just leave it on? Why wouldn't you want to know what's coming later on? They just turn it off. It doesn't make an ounce of sense, other than the fact that they're complicit with the corporations and with the government's in general, all colluding together in order to not have the public freak out. And I want to connect this into other issues that are going on today. I'm not necessarily linking the two, but just take this with a grain of salt for a moment. Out of Science Daily, but the information actually comes from Johns Hopkins. Bad luck of random mutations plays a predominant role in cancer, study shows. So it's not genetically modified food. It's not Fukushima radiation or nuclear power plant radiation. It's not the lack of exercise. It's not the healthy eating. It's just bad luck. That's why cancer's happening. It's just bad luck. Sorry, everyone. No need to worry, though, because it's bad luck. You can't do anything about it. No need to fight back. It's all bad luck. Well, the fact remains is that there are many reasons why this is the case. You need to understand that this is a multifaceted issue. We need to know what's being sprayed on us from overhead. We need to know what's happening with these nuclear reactors. We need to know what is in our food supply, what they're putting hydrofluorosilicic acid into the water, calling it fluoride when we know that it is actually a toxic waste product from the phosphate industry, the aluminum industry, that they bottle up. It is considered toxic waste. It's called hydrofluorosilicic acid, but because it has, it is sort of fluoride, they're able to market it as that, sell it as a product to all of the water supplies around the world, essentially. And in Toronto alone, I happen to know that we pay $2 million per year to buy this toxic substance and dump it into the drinking water supply. We have seen that statistically, this really links up to osteosarcoma, bone cancer. The people who work on this fluoride component are all massively crippled, the ones who are exposed to it for long periods of time. So we know that it does have these problems. We need to look into these things deeper, just like this. I've really ranted on enough about that. Let's go on to one more thing before I close off. This is the most scariest article I've read in a long time. I hope that I can just get through it clearly and concisely. Out of the New York Times. Scientists alter crops with technique outside of regulators' scope. We're looking at GMO foods. They're obviously a huge problem. We look at them statistically. After 3 generations, any species they tested on, these genetically modified crops destroy these animals, and whether it's bison, whether it's buffalo, whether it's rats and mice and pigs and any sort of different species. After 3 generations, they all have organ failure, they're all infertile, and they are all basically, in many cases, actually dying prematurely. This is exactly where we are headed when we look into, we're only about the 2nd generation and not quite, perhaps still in the 1st generation, but we already see the effects of infertility. We are witnessing the cancers that are increasing dramatically. As I was, to add on to what I said before, the tumor rates are just massive in these animals that are getting genetically modified food at all times. And this is one that goes even beyond that. This is so frightening. I can't believe that. I'm just going to go into it right away. Talking about Scott's Miracle-Gro company. They've tried to genetically modify grass, and they will do so successfully eventually, but watch this. Scott's is once again developing genetically modified grass that would need less mowing, be a deeper green, and be resistant to damage from the popular weed killer Roundup. But this time, it will not need federal approval before it can be field tested and marketed. Do you understand that in order to get this approved, all you need is a trial that's oftentimes less than 90 days? In these tests, they just have to do the tests themselves, submit that data to the FDA, and it will get approved. They submit their own data. This is completely criminal. And yet, they couldn't even get their own product approved because it was so disastrous. But let's go on. Scott and several other companies are developing genetically modified crops using techniques that either are outside the jurisdiction of the agricultural department or using new methods like genome editing that were not envisioned when the regulations were created. You need to read this article. It is absolutely essential. Genome editing. They actually are changing the DNA, affecting the DNA directly. There will be individuals who are completely ignorant and do not understand this. That's okay. We're going to ignore them. They are able to edit the genome. They are able to change our DNA. They're going to do this on the crops, and then they're going to do this on humanity. That's what we're seeing right now. This is completely crazy that they're allowed to do this. They're not even allowed to label genetically modified food. And now we're going to go and edit the actual genome, and they're going to do it, and they're not going to know. Nobody's going to know which ones have been edited and which ones have not. This is a very frightening issue that we're dealing with. This connects back in to what I was just talking about what's in our water supply, what's going on in the air, all of these other things. We are being hurt massively by this. When we look at articles like I covered where we have more people suffering from radiation poisoning, having these isotopes being found at higher and higher levels off of this coast where Fukushima clearly is still melting down and is finding its way over, it's leaking into the water, that these, the whole ecological system is being affected by this, and nobody is raising any alarm bells when this is supposed to be on page 1 news every single day. If you found this informative, I would truly appreciate a thumbs up. This is the kind of information that we need to share with our friends and our family. It is absolutely critical right now. Just even if not for the Fukushima information for this year, I'm going to have to get into this deeper. This one right here is something that really hits home with me, and I hope that it does for you as well. Again, I wanted to just mention to everybody how much support I'm getting on the channel. I really, really appreciate all of you. Specifically, I want to try to get back to all of your emails. I'm really trying hard. There's just countless emails every single day. I want them to continue to come in. Please send me those emails. I'm going to reply to you at the insiders first, then I go into my personal other email, David at TheMoneyGPS.com. I reply to you there, and then I come to the comments and try to get as many as I can in. It's just overwhelming now as we cross past 12,000 subscribers on here. There are well over 1,400 insiders. It's just growing and growing. Why? Because the information, not because of David Quintieri, but because the information is so important, so vital, and I hope that you are finding this truly informative. Don't forget to become an insider. It is where I give out all my best intel for free, and that is available at TheMoneyGPS.com. You scroll down to the bottom, fill in your email address, and you get occasional emails from me with good, short, concise info.